There's so much discussion, there's so much talk around vision and how to have vision and what actually vision means that I feel like, I remember finding myself in a situation going like, what actually is vision? Like, I need to be able to define this. I need to be able to explain this. I need to be able to like have some sort of like conceptual knowledge on what vision is. If vision is so important, which I believe vision is extremely important, then I should have like some sort of understanding as to what vision actually is. And throughout my study and throughout the process of just really trying to refine this, I feel like I came up with an idea of how to explain and understand vision. And the first thing that you have to understand about vision is multidimensional. What that means is that we are multidimensional beings. We are spiritual beings that live in a body inside of this place called Earth. And there are multiple ways that you can see. For example, we might both be in the same profession, but God is calling you to go left and me to go right. Very much like Paul and Barnabas, right? Like there was a particular way that God was desiring for each of them to go that had to do with the vision, the foresight, the knowledge, the understanding of their calling, of what God was positioning them to do, of what he was going to do through them and in them and all sorts of things. But in the physical dimension, all you could see is left and right. You couldn't actually see the greater purpose for their life. For example, Paul and Peter, they had both a task to preach the gospel, but they had two very different ways that they were called to do it. It's the same thing with vision. Vision is multi-dimensional. Now, very much like us being triune, like our creator, right? I think that vision is triune as well. I think that there's three areas or three particular types of vision that you always have to be aware of and that have to be in alignment for you to have clear vision. The first area that you need to have vision in is who you are. Like you need to be clear about who you are, who God created you to be, like your identity, your calling, your mission, your purpose, your values, all of those kind of things. Like when you simply just take a step back and look at it, like who in fact are you? This is part of having vision. The second dimension is having a vision for where you're at. We're at different stages in life for several different reasons, right? Like in some stages, we're growing, we're learning, we're processing, we're becoming the person we need to be. We all know that nobody's created to just live on mountaintop moments, that there's a lot of internal struggle. There's a lot of internal things that we need to do and develop in, that sometimes, negative situations are actually the best thing that could happen to us because of how we mature and how we develop. And so we know that there's a vision that exists for where you're at. You have to know that like where you're at isn't always where you're going to stay. So you might be discouraged with where you're at. You might be feeling like, man, I'm never going to get to where I want to get to. But the reality of it is that you just simply don't have vision. That's the second dimension of vision. And the last dimension of vision is one that I feel like we all want to focus on. The first one is like who you are. Like nobody really wants to focus on that. And I think that it's very difficult to focus on that, right? Because you have to be very self-aware. You have to be willing to confront some of those demons and some of those character flaws and those things that you don't want to admit that people said about you your whole life, but you're trying to ignore it, right? So it's like a lot of work in understanding who you are. And I think that the last one is where we want to spend most of our attention, and that is where you're going. You have to have a vision and have vision for where you're going. And here's the trick with these three dimensions of vision is that I think that when at least one of them is off, all it takes is one to be off. And now you're prone to what the Bible would call wandering. Wandering is a spiritual condition when you as a person cast off restraint. As the Bible tells us, where there is no vision, the people perish. Another translation says, the people cast off restraint. They give up. They throw in the towel. So I think that in your life, understanding who you are, where you're at and where you're going, these are three areas that have to constantly be in full view. And at least you don't have to have all the answers. See, I think that's the trick, right? It's like a lot of people think like, well, I got to know all. It's not about knowing them. It's not about knowing the answers. It's about understanding them and making sure that when you don't know one of them, you just don't cast off restraint. That you understand, okay, I don't know why I'm struggling with this particular thing, but I'm going to go towards it. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to develop it. I don't know why I'm at this job right now. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but it will make sense. And I'm going to continue to do a good job. I'm going to continue to be a hard worker. I'm going to continue to do all of the things that I know I should be doing as a person of vision, right? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where this thing's going to wind up. I don't know where it's going to lead. Like, I don't have all those answers. But as a person of vision, I'm not going to just cast off restraint. I'm not going to let that deter me or distract me or discourage me out of being a purpose of vision. Let me just tell you, and I'll just end on this, that, wandering is one of the worst spiritual conditions that you can actually have in your life. Wandering is so severe that it actually transfers from generation to generation. You might have come into a season of wandering, not knowing that it was actually the generations before you and before them that led you into that wilderness. One of the first things that Jesus did when he got initiated into ministry, when the dove came down and the voice of heaven opened up, and when Jesus was activated in ministry, what was one of the first things that he did? He actually went into the wilderness, which is symbolic for wandering. He went in and showed us how to conquer, how to overcome, how to deal with these difficult questions of who you are, your identity. Look at all of the temptations that Satan gave him. All of them had to do with those three areas and those three dimensions of vision. Satan attacked each and every one of them. But Jesus knew who he was. He had a vision, and so therefore he didn't cast off restraint. He didn't give in. He didn't take the temptation. He stayed focused and he defeated it. And that was the very first thing that he showed us how to do, was defeat wandering.